have to. This is why we always have to be on top of the laws that are being legislated, that are being passed, where they're at in that part of legislation, where you can try to intercept it, where you can try to talk to your local leaders. Um, we were talking before about the laws that they are being proposed here in Georgia about voting, in other states, 43 states that are passing this stuff. And we check out our last episode when we talked to Hannah, and we kind of broke down a lot of the stuff that was going on in Georgia and how the people are protesting. Let's not forget Jim Crow laws. We're going to talk about Jim Crow laws and how, you know, what we see going on now, it could kind of like creep in Jim Crow back into the fold. You know that law that was just passed recently in Georgia about being a what do you call it? Citizen's arrest? Remember that? Mm-hmm. Well, that was a Jim Crow relic. It was enacted in 1863. It allowed white citizens to capture slaves fleeing north. And it wasn't until recently that they got rid of that law, which it was when Ahmaud Arbery got killed. What were you saying, Jay Black?
No, I was gonna say what are the Jim Crow laws? I mean, I'm just looking it up myself though.
Okay, Jim Crow laws were.
No, not as far as like not exact. Well, I mean, I guess you can explain what they.
Okay, Jim Crow laws were state and local laws in the United States enacted between 1876, which is after slavery. Remember, allegedly. I mean, 1865. It wasn't like, and this is the perception I think people have. In 1865, when the Emancipation Proclamation was signed and they were legally not supposed to have slaves, it wasn't like the slave owners just walked out in the field like, okay, guys, thanks. Mm-hmm. Like, no, it wasn't like that. They were still, we know in Texas, it took them a couple of years for them to find out. That's why they celebrate Juneteenth. They didn't even know. They didn't ride their horse down to Texas and tell them for a while. And that's why we celebrate Juneteenth. So they were enacted in 1876 and all the way to 1965, Jim Crow laws existed through the United States and originated from the Black Codes that were passed from 1865 to 1866 in the form of pre-American Civil War that mandated segregation in all public facilities with supposed separate but equal statutes. So segregation after slavery, like, okay, they're free, whatever, we don't want to be bothered with them. We just want them to work for us and then go somewhere else. They were trying to keep that going, basically. In Alabama, one of the examples of a Jim Crow law was it shall be unlawful to conduct a restaurant or other place for the serving of food in the city at which white and colored people are served in the same room unless such white and colored persons are effectively separated by a solid partition extending from the floor upward to a distance of 7 feet or higher. And unless a separate entrance for the street is provided to each compartment. This law was put in place in 1934. Like, that was one example in Alabama. California has so many, like, I don't even want to read it. One of the things in Florida, all courtship between a white person and a Negro person or between a white person and a person of Negro descent to the 4th generation are hereby forever prohibited. If you got any black people in your family for 4 generations, you cannot marry a white person in Florida. That was the Jim Crow law. Any black man and white women or any white man and or Negro women who are not married to each other who shall habitually live in and occupy in the nighttime in the same room shall each be punished by imprisonment not exceeding 12 months or fine not exceeding $500. Are y'all hearing this? White and colored children were prohibited from being taught in the same schools. Separation of races required on all streetcars. Separate waiting rooms for each race to be provided at a railroad depot along with separate ticket windows. So these things were in a law. In Georgia, it shall be unlawful for any amateur white baseball team to play baseball on any vacant lot or baseball diamond within 2 blocks of a playground devoted to Negro race. These things, here's one from Louisiana. Any person who shall rent any part of any such building to a Negro person, to a Negro family, when such building is already in whole or in part occupancy of a white person or a white family, or vice versa, when the building is in occupancy of a Negro person or a Negro family, shall be guilty of a misdemeanor with a fine of $2,000. These were the laws. So, guess what? Recently, someone from here in Georgia, a controversial legislator, Marjorie Taylor Greene, said that she's proposing an America's First Caucus. Do you know what the America's First Caucus means?
I don't.
The American First Caucus means that they would push Anglo Saxon ways of life. What does that mean?
I know Anglo Saxon got to do with the white race, from my understanding. Let me see.
That's true. So exactly what does this mean? The American First Caucus will be announced very soon, she said. I'm wondering what that is.
Germanic peoples?
Is that what that says?
Peoples who from the 5th century to the time of the Norman conquest inhabited and ruled territories that are today part of England. So basically like the England people from England.
So the American First Caucus is going to promote Anglo Saxon traditions. So when people say Americans and legal, and that's all dog whistle words for, apparently, what is it? Anglo Saxons. Just be careful. Just be careful. Because there's a lot of black politicians that are pushing for Anglo Saxon traditions too. Because whoever is lining up with this group of people, the people that her and Trump and all those people, I don't know what's going on.
So basically, I looked up what is Anglo-Saxon culture. It said the Anglo-Saxon culture was centered around 3 classes of men: the working man, the churchman, and the warrior.
Oh, that makes sense. That's what they think those people were at the Capitol that day. Remember, they had the warrior and they had all that other stuff. That makes sense. Well, good luck, Marjorie Taylor
It's
Greene.
like a British following, like, one of that type of.
Good luck with that. Sounds like a bunch of foolishness to me. Twitter was all talking about it, and I was cracking up. Twitter's crazy.
Yeah, cause it's. I mean, the one thing I can say I appreciate about Twitter is that it sparks dialogue, it sparks conversation. Mm-hmm. No matter how wild the conversation is, like, you getting viewpoints from other sides, from both sides, and I think you can take something from all of it.
Right.
But
yeah, it's a lot. It's overwhelming.
Yeah, cause everybody has an opinion on everything.
Right.
And it's just like, man, it's crazy. It's crazy. And you get killed for having your own opinion. I see people get killed for, like, not thinking like the rest of the
yeah, it's a group think tank.
Yeah, exactly.
Hard right, this is what AP reported when they found out. Hard right House Republicans on Friday were discussing forming an American First Caucus, which the document describes as championing Anglo-Saxon political traditions. A warning that mass immigration was putting the unique identity of the U.S. at risk. So you have to understand that there are people, like we were talking about the Jim Crow laws, but you see how the Jim Crow laws mostly centered around not living near or interacting at all with black people. Mm-hmm. So I guess that's what Anglo-Saxon tradition is to be. But that's not the world we live in, ma'am, sir, conservative. That's just not the world we live in. So because that's not realistic, you create these weird groups of people that all want to believe it is, and they start spreading shit. That's all.
I think that's religion.
Really?
I wouldn't say weird groups, but I mean that's basically the same concept.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think the world is just how the world is. Like everything is grouped. Everything is grouped. From even when you was at school at the lunch table and people you hung with at school.
Your vibe is your tribe.
To your political beliefs. Like everything is. It seemed like I can only just speak for America, but it just seems like we have to categorize everything. Everything has to be in a category. Everything has to be boxed in to where you're a part of this group. If I wear black all the time and I got black, I'm a gothic. I'm a goth person.
Yeah.
So I think we just got to get out of that thinking. We got to change our thinking on things. We've been taught to think certain ways and
right.
believe certain things or certain ways for so long that it just became normal. Even what we going through now, like with the virus and shit, like we were so used to running around without a mask and just kind of moving like we want to that it's taking people are fighting against doing the right thing about it. Like it's just what people are used to, and that's why it's only been a year.
Yeah.
And it seems like a long time, but it's really not.
I think it's been a long time.
It is, but you got to compare a year to somebody that's been doing something for 29 years, 30 years, 40 years, 45, 50 years. I haven't had to wear a mask for 50 years of my life, and now all of a sudden, everything I've done my whole life, you want me to just conform to this. Of course, I'm gonna have some pushback because it's making me uncomfortable, and I think that's really what it is. I don't think it's people that's against. They just they getting put out of their comfort zone.
They're getting used to it.